Welcome everybody. Today we're going to take a look at some practice methods that I really enjoy. I've made reference to some of them in some of my content before. And so I want to take a look at some things that I've played recently and show you a little bit more what I mean by them. I've made reference to doubling the notes before, and so I'm going to show you a little bit of what that looks like. Is the Mendelssohn Midsummer Dream, which know that this is a demanding excerpt. And so one thing that can help us with the coordination in this, because it's quite fast, one thing that can help us with the coordination is doubling the notes. So you can do it that way where you're just doubling the fast notes, or you can double everything. And so as we get a hang of the notes and how they all interact with each other, we can speed that up. And so what that does is it's forcing my fingers here to really move quickly. And it also lengthens the note. I'm adding more space to each of the notes by doing that, but then also I have to make sure I change really cleanly. Otherwise the note's not going to sound when it should. Another thing you can do is dotted rhythms. This would be a great excerpt to use dotted rhythms on. So we have the normal way, long, short, long, and then we have short, long, short, long, short, long. Those are two different dotted rhythms. You do them in reverse. So that would sound something like this. And this becomes really helpful in longer passages like what we have later, 41. And then you can reverse that. So and then we can also speed that up. Or the reverse. And then after I do that a few times, then I can try putting it back together the normal way. And it really helps me get a handle over how the notes should be lengthwise, what my fingers need to do with coordination. So that's a favorite of mine. So both the dotted rhythms and then also, aside from the dotted rhythms, the doubling of the sound, which you can do here as well. Another thing that I made reference to is practicing something in the character that you want it. So this one has kind of a light, playful character to it, nothing too serious, right? Versus something like maybe the Mozart, which I just had here, which is also light, but a very different character, much slower and more thoughtful. Just that opening right there, very different from. So one thing that I do sometimes when I'm preparing a list of pieces for a concert, an audition, that type of thing, is starting each piece in the character that I want it and just do the beginning and move on to the next thing. So for example, if I were preparing these two excerpts, I might just go back and forth between them for a little bit. Make sure I can really get the beginning of each one in the character that I really want it. So I'm not doing, or which is very different in both respects. I'm kind of inverting the characters to a degree. And so if I have a list of 4, 5, 10 different things that I need to prepare and make sure that I know the beginning of it right away, then I would cycle through. I had these 3 along with a solo piece. I'll give you a bigger picture of how this would look. And I also want to make sure with each of these that I'm really getting the sound that I want. So there are a couple of those where I wasn't quite happy with the sound, but I'm just going to keep cycling through them. You can try that one again, we'll get more connection. I would keep doing this. There's definitely some things that I would want to work on returning to these if I was preparing these all again. But that's kind of the idea, is cycling through them. And I wasn't doing them all in the same order. Sometimes they were a certain order and then mix them up. And what would really work with a larger list is find a randomizer or use like a bowl and write them down and just pick them at random. And that works really well. Another good practice technique that I really like is checking your notes against other ones on different strings. So for example, like the Mendelssohn, let's go back to that one. And making sure that intonation is there right at the beginning. Now I want to keep that finger down. Make sure that arpeggio is really in tune. There. So it's not written with the 2 notes at the same time, but I'm adding that in as a way of checking, making sure that my fingers are kind of in the general hand frame. And you can also apply this to the other Mozart excerpt from his symphony. And then this part here. So I want to do that octave. So really training my fingers. How does that feel? Tend to go a little flat, so I'm going to try to think just a little bit higher. Yeah, still flat. I did think just a little bit, just a little higher on that one, and that kind of helped. You could also do this, and they're great for arpeggios. Really, really great for arpeggios. So some of the notes were fine, but then that octave was not. Okay, now that's in tune. That's better. E, so I'm not really doubling there so much. What I'm doing in this part to really get the rhythm, because the rhythm's hard. To really get the rhythm there, through that whole passage, what I'm doing is I'm taking the smallest value note that is at this part in this passage, which is a 16th, and I'm just making everything a 16th. And that way I can kind of figure out where are those rests and where are those offbeats. And then as I get more comfortable with that, speed it up. And then all together without, well, maybe a little bit faster one more time. I feel like I made that a little shorter. Now without. I have a feeling I need to go back and work on a couple of those sections, but that's the process. That's how I would go through it. I wouldn't rush through that. So those are some of the practice methods that I really enjoy using. Another practice method that I really like is actually using a drone. So for example, if we go back to the Mozart, that has a lot of weird shifts and stuff. So this is in, it's an A flat, but we use E flat a lot here. So I'm just gonna put it on E flat, I think, for now. Well, actually, I'll do A flat. So I have this drone on. And I compare that E flat with the A flat. Make sure that A flat really syncs up. shift is important. So the really important thing with the drone is make sure you go back many times and you're constantly checking yourself. And when you hear that mistake and you adjust it and find that right spot for it, to go back in a few notes and try it again. And the key is to do this many days in a row. You're not going to be able to just pull any of these practice methods out in one day and make it suddenly perfect. Better, yes. Perfect, it takes probably weeks with some of these passages and these practice methods to really get them really, really comfortable. Another really good thing is to find a few recordings that you like or that you know that an ensemble or orchestra does. If they have recordings out, find their recordings and try playing these excerpts along with them. Or any piece, really. It could be a concerto, it could be a symphony, it could be a quartet, really anything, solo piece or otherwise. Using these practice methods consistently is really, really important. So I hope this was helpful, and let me know if you have any questions or comments down below, and I'll see you next time.